are these traditional routes of going to college, getting in debt, trying to find some corporate job. And everybody realizes now, like, that's not, a meaningful life for a lot of people. Like, you're seeking more, you're seeking different paths. I'd encourage those people that are looking for alternatives to find the alternatives, whether it's a thing like pursuing Hwa Rang Do as, not just a martial art practice, but as a business. This is an important thing and a great opportunity for a lot of people. But there's also ways that you can enhance your own skills and seeking apprenticeship styles of learning and vocational styles of learning versus, again, just the university liberal arts degree, which, again, there's so many people going down that track and then are working at Target and Walmart and other things and happy to get a manager job, yet they're still $250,000 in debt. We have to look at, what are self-sustainable, self-reliant ways of pursuing a livelihood.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 6th edition of Live by the Sword with Grandmaster Taejoon Lee and myself, Ferny Ceballos. And today we have an honored guest, a guest who's been a mentor to me, a friend to me for many years. And he's actually a master in the art of Hwa Rang Do. And we have here Master Dylan Cerny. Master Cerny, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Ferny. It's wonderful to see you here, and it's great to be on the podcast.
Well, thank you for being here. This is really exciting for me because I just love hearing about your journey through Hwa Rang Do, and Grandmaster Lee obviously has been a big part of that journey, and I'm sure we'll discuss that. And Grandmaster Lee, we're gonna be doing like just kind of play it by ear because this is really more of a discussion and exploring an individual's journey from white belt all the way to master in the art of Hwa Rang Do over the past 2 decades. But is there anything you wanted to share to kick off our episode before we get started?
No, I mean, basically, Master Cerny is he can probably introduce and explain himself much better, and I will go ahead and add my input as we continue. But Master Dylan Cerny is the vice president of our World Hwa Rang Do Association, and he has okay, Google. He has received the master's level, which means 5th Dan, which there's only a handful of people in the world who has that title. And he has been actively involved since in his early 20s, right out of college. He can. To me, I always think Master Cerny is a certain age in his 20s when I first met him. So I don't exactly know how long it's been, but I'm sure it's been over 2 decades.
25 years.
Yeah, and he's a very important, active, individual who's vital to our organization, not only to Hwa Rang Do but to our nonprofit organization as well. He's doing a tremendous work in his school in Minneapolis. He has one of the strongest youth programs there. And so, I'll let Master Cerny take it away and introduce himself. And also, the reason why we also want to introduce him now is that he will be a co-host in our podcast. When Ferny is unavailable, Master Cerny will fill in. So here he is, Master Dylan Cerny.
Sir, just tell us a little bit about yourself and get the ball rolling.
Sounds great. And thank you for the kind introduction, sir. I really appreciate that. As Cookson said, my journey in Hwa Rang Do started kind of out of college. And it was, at that point where I think most people are seeking for their path in life and trying to find out what their purpose is, where they fit into the world, asking some of the deeper philosophical and existential type questions. And back when I started, this was pre-internet age. So, there wasn't really any knowledge that was easily accessible for in terms of martial art. It had a very esoteric and almost mythic, quality to pursuing martial arts. But when I got into it, I knew right away, like, wow, this is something special. Hwarang Do has this 1800-year-old tradition, and it grows out of the Three Kingdoms period of Korea, where the noble youth were trained in all aspects of life. And it wasn't just the combative aspects that were important to them. It was really the seeking of truth that drove their existence. And then they became the leaders of society and created a flourishing kingdom there. So as I was growing up and looking at different options for what I wanted to pursue, when I looked around at the world, there was many possibilities, but nothing was that inspirational. I think part of my reason for getting attached to Hwarang Do too comes from a music background, because that was kind of where I was in high school, was studying music pretty intensely. I went to college to pursue a music education degree. And, when you're getting into music, the feeling of music is very an inspirational experience to be involved with. But also with music, you have to practice a lot. So we were practicing like 4 or 5 hours a day, trying to develop skills, to develop our intention, to develop the ability and capabilities to play the instrument. And one of the things for me was I never really thought of myself as a performer. Like, I liked jazz, I liked playing in the pit bands and theater and other things. However, I never thought I'm going to be a professional musician as a career track. So the teaching aspect was important, because I also saw a lot of, I was just out of high school. You see a lot of problems, a lot of disenchantment from people in school, a lot of the educational system not really helping people gain insight into themselves and for how they can pursue their own career track in their own life. And everybody was floating around, it seemed like. So when I got into Hwarang Do, I knew right away, like, wow, this is about studying your life's purpose and developing the skills and craftsmanship to hone yourself. So for me, I wasn't involved in Hwarang Do or started out, like a lot of people, like the fighting components, or, like, oh, I watch Bruce Lee and I want to be this fantastic, fighter. That wasn't my intention at all.
So let's go ahead and step back a little bit here, and so how did you first you know find out about Hwarang Do? It's because we're not everywhere. We're not like karate or taekwondo. So explain how you first saw Hwarang Do, how you first introduced to it, and what got you to start training to begin with anyway.
Yeah, sounds great, sir. So for me, again, I was at the University of Wisconsin Eau Claire's with studying the music education degree. And it was basically just in the first few weeks of being a freshman there in the music department, I saw a little flyer that said the ancient noble art of Korean martial art of Hwarang Do. And one of the
This is through the Eau Claire. So when we had the Eau Claire club there.
Yes, sir. So the Eau Claire Club was actually, this was the very first year that it started. So Scott Pingle was one of the best bass players and a renowned bass player to this day. And, in that music department, there was like a nice positive culture. Everybody was hungry for playing. And, he was one of the stars seniors at that time. And he just started teaching. He just got his sash. And him and then another student in the music program was there doing things, and they just started working out, and they opened up a club, and me and basically 2 other guys were the first members there.
Okay, so you got involved because of Pingle.
Yes, sir.
Friends with Pingle. Okay.
Well, I didn't really know him at that time. I just knew who he was, because I was just walking in the door as a freshman, and he was a star musician. And
all right. So explain to us your state of mind and how you were socially as a freshman, because I know. So I want you to tell us, right, your worldview, your outlook, right, your perception of the world, etc. And how that in that state of mind, in that perception, how it attracted to you to Hwarang Do, and then what elements of Hwarang Do, motivated you to stay, and then of course the next part of you coming to headquarters. So what led to those things?
Yes, sir. So again, kind of like for me, it was the existential pursuit of the meaning of life. Like by far, I was, who am I? What is this world? What are all the different things? You see a lot of the corruption of governments and corporations, and history was a big thing that I studied in high school a lot too, and getting into philosophy. And, it's just the endless quandary of who am I, what's my place, and what should I do? And, there's a lot of emptiness that comes from that. And you're trying to find out who you are, and the world's a big place. But at the same time, I knew I didn't know everything, but I thought I did. And so, you have a very self-righteous pursuit at the younger ages, because you don't know everything, but you think you do. And I was just searching, sir. So, when I got into Hwarang Do, again, like part of the other thing with me is, growing up as a late X generation, Gen X guy, we grew up before internet. I was playing outside all day in my youth, lived at my cabin in the summers, was exploring, had lots of freedom. But other big thing about growing up in the 80s is I was a Star Wars kid. So, Star Wars was very inspirational. And so I made the connection like, hey, this ancient Korean noble martial art of Hwarang Do, to me, it seemed like the Jedi Star Wars mindset. And it's like, hey, this is real. And these guys practice this. They live this. This was part of history.
So, I mean, you're one of the reasons why I say this too is because you're one of the few people, right out of college, and you came out to headquarters. At that time, it was in Downey, right?
Yes, sir.
The world headquarters, and you decided to apprentice there, right out of college. So, tell us what motivated you, and you drove out there, right?
Yes, sir. I drove
out there with a beat up SUV or something with Pingo, or did you drive it? Anyway, give us some anecdote, story of I mean, first of all, why, right? What led you to make that commitment? Because that's very rare that people do that, which means that right out of college, you decided to commit as a career choice to being a professional Hwarang Do instructor. That's that's unique. So I like for you to share what led you to do that.
Yeah, when people think about joining a club, it's like a short-term thing, a hobby. You're there in school for a career, but the club became your career. So how did that happen?
Sure. So, while I was in Eau Claire, my original intention was studying music and going down that as a potential career track. But again, like when I got into Hwarang Do, I knew this was more impactful and insightful to me because it contained more of the philosophical.
Is there? Can you share like a story, one moment or instance that made that was there a moment that made that impact and you realized it, or it's just
I think I knew right away, sir. Like, we got the volume 1 book that your father, Taejoon wrote, and it made the connection with the Star Wars type mythical history to the real world. But because I was studying philosophy in high school and seeking different things, it just really resonated. So like, I think in my heart of hearts, like I knew right away, as soon as I did like the first couple weeks of classes, like this is going to be part of my life. I don't know exactly what it's going to be, but I'm going to do this for a long time. It just really resonated with me. And so, one of the things too, like, so was there a choice? I think it was very difficult for me to choose Hwarang Do as a career track because it was completely unknown. Like I didn't know any martial art business, or I didn't have any good martial art skills either at that point. And so, I think it was just it was kind of one of those leaps of faith where like, I know it's important. I have to do this. And the more I was kind of reflective and quiet about which direction I would go, be in this band teacher route or the martial art route, I could tell there was a voice, you know, telling me like, there's one way that's better than the other. That's the right path that I need to do. And, you know, a lot of the dissatisfaction I had as a college kid about looking at the world, you know, I wanted to make a difference. And while teaching music would be a great way to make a difference, because that's why I got into it. My band teacher in high school was this fantastic human being that impacted, you know, thousands of people his whole career. But for me to articulate the life lessons through martial art it's very easy. They're in your face all the time. You can't run from any of the life lessons by doing martial arts.
And so what led you to go into headquarters, making that long trip from Minnesota to Los Angeles? And
well, I think it was before I even went to headquarters. So it was, all right, I'm not going to do music education as a career. So I need to figure out how to do Hwa Rang Do as a career. And like, we didn't have a formal instructor program there at this club. So I transferred to Madison to work with Master David Kiek, who was kind of he's the head person here in the Midwest for the martial art. And then at the time I transferred my education degree to an East Asian studies degree. So I could get more in depth in the East Asian history, philosophy, culture, and languages and all those kinds of things. So while I was finishing up my undergraduate degree at Madison, I was also training at the school, you know, 5 hours a day, teaching the kids classes, you know, learning some of the business components with Master Kiek. And then, you know, that was a very important time for me to kind of just start out teaching and working with kids and learning the business side of it firsthand. It was a great time. And then, you know, it was fun, like in the summers, you know, as Grandmaster Lee said, you know, I would take my car out and we'd drive out to headquarters, drive to LA. And, you know, I took a trip with Aaron Doty, was one of my first students there with me in Eau Claire. And then my best friend, Matt Pivick, you know, he was training very seriously. Another summer we went out there.
So before you came to headquarters to apprentice there, you came out in the summer.
Yes, sir. So yeah, the two summers before I moved, we were out there for a few weeks each time.
Okay. Right. And then you decided to come and stay at headquarters.
So I think, you know, after graduating college and then also visiting headquarters and meeting you prior, I knew I wasn't ready to kind of just jump out on my own and like, okay, I'm just ready to go. No, I knew I wasn't ready and I needed more time to develop and learn the depth of the art and the depth of the history, the skills, the business, and so many other things. And so I wanted to get closer to the source of it and you know, to be with you and to be with your father, Taejoon, and, you know, to get some apprentice time. You know, I knew it was important for me. Like I had to get out there, I had to train, but also another important thing for me was I wanted to serve. Like I didn't feel ready to be, you know, jumping on the front lines as a running my own school, but I wanted to help the art and I wanted to work and I wanted to learn through the apprentice style experience because I knew that was important. You know, like growing up, my father ran an architectural company. So I was like spending my summers working on job sites, and that work experience of just doing is one of the best ways to learn any skill, no matter what it is. So before coming here to Minneapolis, you know, I knew I needed more time.
Yeah. So, I mean, the obvious question is next. So what's your experience like at headquarters with Taejoon?
That experience was definitely priceless, sir.
Yeah, share some stories with us. And
I think again, one of the great things about it is, you know, like going into it, I had that, you know, again, somewhat mythical type expectation of like what I'm going to do here. Like I'm going to headquarters. I'm going to be basically, you know, 24 hours a day. I'm there working, training, you know, cleaning, doing whatever job that needs to be done. I was living up in that back closet. You know, there's like a little bunk bed, you know, basically a 5 by 12 room closet that I lived in for 2 years. And it was just like every day we're here to work. And I think one of the funnest things was like I had no idea what I was getting myself into. Absolutely no idea. I just knew I wanted to be close to the source of Hwa Rang Do and work hard. So I show up there, and Taejoon is walking around the building. He's showing me around the different places. Okay, here's the showers, here's your room, here's my office, here's the back area, and it was a fun tour. And then he's like, okay, it's class time, you go teach. And there were a few of the other older instructors that were there, and the first thing was a kids class, and there was like a whole bunch of kids there in that class. It was about like 15 of them or so, all belt levels from white belt to advanced belts. So it was kind of an intimidating experience, because in the old headquarters, there was this bench along the whole back wall. So Taejoon sitting in the middle, he has all the other instructors sitting beside him, and then all these kids are lined up, and he's like throwing me in there. All right, let's see what this kid can do. And so before I started the class, first thing I did was I just huddled up all the kids. I was like, come on in here, guys. So try to just connect with them and say like, hey, I don't know you guys. You don't know me. But I only know that we're here to do Hwa Rang Do, and we're here to get strong. We're here to develop our power. We're here to find out who we are as human beings and make the best of that time. So we're going to train right now. I want you guys to put your energy into it. I'm going to give you my energy, and let's go. So we line up, we have a big bow, and we jump right into like really hard warm up. We're doing drills. And, basically a couple, minutes after that, Taejoon walks out. So, I'm just leading class and keeping it going. He has all the other instructors are just sitting back there on the wall. And then he comes down after class. We dismiss, everything was good. And then Taejoon goes, okay, you're a head instructor, you lead everything. He walked out. So, okay, so I'm continued running the day of the classes, and then he takes me out to dinner that night. We go to the steak joint, down the block there. He gives me a big steak, and he's just chatting. He's like, okay, you're ready to work? I'm like, yes, sir, I'm ready to work. I'm like, so, and then I asked, well, what should I do, sir? It's like, well, you're in charge. You run headquarters. You run the class. You run the work. Whatever you need, ask me, ask Grandmaster Lee. You're in charge. You do it. I was like, really, sir? Like, I don't know what to do here. That's not. He's like, what do you mean you don't know what to do? You do it. So I think pretty much from day one, I was there to work and then do it, sir.
How long were you there?
So I stayed 2 years. The intent was only going to be 1 year, but there was a lot of work that needed to be done there at headquarters, and I became such an integral component of the work for the association and for Taejoon. We also ended up doing a big remodeling project for the school. So I was kind of instigated that. There was this old drop ceiling in the Downey building, but they had like this whole wide open ceiling, so it's very spacious in there. And so we tried to do a big remodeling project to boost the school enrollment and make it a better facility. And so due to that project and just the overall need, I ended up staying for a full 2 years.
What would you say was like one of the key or most pivotal moments during those 2 years? Like what stands out for you?
It's tough to say because it was such a life-changing experience for me. Like, I grew up in the Midwest. Again, before I started Hwa Rang Do, I never did any martial arts. I never did sports that much. Like, I played football, basketball in middle school and elementary school, tennis a little bit in high school. But basically, like, I didn't like the whole jock.
You were a band geek
sport thing. Yeah, I was a music guy.
Right.
So like getting into the physicality of training, that was a big deal for me. Like, I had a lot to learn through that. It was very tough, but I think from that day one of this expectation that Taejoon had, like, okay, you just go, you got to work, you got to do it, you got to commit. And I think that was probably the most important thing for me, because before that moment, it was a lot of wondering. You're always spinning your wheels. What about this? What about this? What's it going to be like? And in martial art, one of the most important things is action. If you don't practice and you don't commit, you're not going to be skilled and not be successful at whatever opportunities in front of you. And for Taejoon, like, he's a man of action his whole life. And you can just tell that he doesn't need to say a lot. He's always going and always working and always committed. And being next to him and close to him, just resonating with that is like, it's a powerful example. And just like the day in and day out, like literally it was all day long, either working for the school, trying to learn website coding by myself, learning other business stuff. Fortunately, Grandmaster Lee was there for me during that time. So once a week I would go up and see him, and he would spend a lot of time mentoring me, getting to, talk about life and talk about business, talk about all these kinds of things. Like, that was one of the most impactful experiences too, because clearly, Grandmaster Lee has so much insight into the world. And I think at the time for me too, he was great at balancing the East and West components and articulating that in a way. Like, while I was studying the undergraduate side, technically and academically about the Eastern world, he was able to bring it in a more understandable way, so that it was really articulated. Like, it made a lot of sense. His insights, really connected things and sparked different things inside. So I think that was a very important thing for me too. But yeah, I think maybe one of the other stories that I've got that's kind of fun, it was actually on the trip before it's actually the first trip out to LA. So it was driving the SUV out, and, we spent the first time training there in West LA school. And then we went down to the El Toro school and working with Taejoon. So he gives us one class there. And then the next day we go over to his house, and we're there to work. And so we were digging his koi pond. So he had this, right next to his house, there was this very hard clay rock and dirt, and he wanted to dig out that area to make a pond. And so, we thought at first, all right, we're going there for martial art training. We're going to learn joint locking. We're going to learn techniques. So we did our class the night before. But again, the next day, okay, here we go. We're here to work. So we spent the 5 days straight, digging this dirt hole through this like petrified clay. In the first 2 days, he just gives me this big metal, spike. So, like, because shovels wouldn't get into it. So it was like we're just sitting there all day long, spearing this ground, trying to break it apart, and then like get the dirt in the wheelbarrow, wheel it up so it's like a little mountain area next side, And the first day I'm like, oh, sorry, can we rent a jackhammer? Like, this will make it so much easier. Like, go give me a jackhammer. I've used them before, it'd be no problem. He's like, you came here to train, didn't you?
there was
so again, like, me and the other guys were excited, like, okay, yes sir, we're here to train. So we're going and going and going and going. But like, a couple hours later, we're spent, we're burnt out. And we did a whole nother day of that, and then we did a whole nother day of that, and then finally we've only made like this much progress in this petrified clay. The next day he shows up, there's a jackhammer there for us. So the last 2 days we can jackhammer the whole thing out and make it work. And I don't know, I think that experience of Taejoon is precious to me. It's just, he was always a hard worker and had the attention to detail, and just, make whatever you're doing a beautiful thing, do it with quality, do it with precision, and just work hard about what you're doing. And I think those were really important lessons to me that whole time at headquarters. Because if I wasn't like Monday through Saturday, it was at the school, and then Sunday was at the house doing work projects or cleaning or doing different things. So there was no separation between that, what is cleaning, what is work, what is training. Like, life is all about that in the Hwa Rang Do mindset. And that was really important for me. Like, I thought, oh, go out to LA, like maybe I'll get some time to like sightsee or tour, or like, my dad was a sailor, so I love the ocean and love water. I thought, oh, maybe I'll get to go to the beach once in a while or whatever. Happened once. And it only happened after we were doing a photo shoot for Black Belt and we were down by the beach in another area. So we all went out there for a nice lunch, walked on the beach, and then came back. But otherwise, 2 years there, didn't see sights, didn't see beach, didn't see anything.
You weren't really in LA.
I was on the Hwa Rang Do temple is where I was.
Yeah.
So what, I guess, from that point on, like, tell us a little bit about the journey after that. Like what led to you opening the school? What did that look like? Just fill us in a little bit on that.
I mean, but before you go to the next step, I mean, there are, and Master Cerny is able to, he did articulate a little bit, and I just like to go ahead and add to that.
Okay.
And he touched upon that idea, that cleaning, work, training, in our perspective, in Taejoon's perspective, it's all Hwarang Do is life. So it's not about, we have this mindset of compartmentalizing everything. This is work time, this is play time, this is family time, this is, and we don't have that. Taejoon doesn't have that. And the idea of vacation, the idea of leisure, the idea of all those things, many times we think of, we work so we can play. We make money so we can go on, vacations. We work for the weekends, but that's completely opposite in Taejoon's mind, in also the Eastern culture. That is not our way. Life is work. The leisure and the benefits and value, the satisfaction gained, which is then the true sense of happiness, comes from how hard we worked and how through that work we've accomplished something of value. And so through that, then, there's that organic, product, happiness, satisfaction, joy, feeling of purpose and meaning and value, is all gained through hard work, through work. I mean, my upbringing is exactly the same thing. My experience is that 5 days a week, at night I don't see him. He comes in home late. We rarely have dinner together. We don't. I see him on weekends. And when I see him on weekends, it's not like we're going out fishing or doing whatever. On weekends when I see him, I work. When he's home, he's working, right? When he's at work, stays late, and I don't see him. On weekends, we work. That's my entire childhood life. And so, as Master Cerny in his beginning there, I mean, in the Western mind, you could have thought in that way, and many do. Many people do come here, do come to headquarters, and Taejoon doesn't sit there and articulate, right? And it's very different in the sense how we run things or how he runs things. He doesn't give you a whole manual of procedures and things, what to do. He just tells you to do it. You're here to do it, do it. If you have doubt, if you don't commit, and if you can't figure things out, and part of that whole experience is also a test. So in actually the master-disciple relationship, the way we do it is everything's a test. Um, and and if you can't hack it, you know, you leave. And we've had hundreds. And I don't know if you remember there's only 2 years, but through headquarters there, I mean, people were always coming, 70s, 80s, you got the ex hippies and the 80s, you got all kinds of people coming through there. And not many stay because of just the process in how, we put you, the way we test you is to put you uh, under the pressure cooker. There is no explanation. There is no, uh, um, you know, step by
Orient-
step.
Orientation or brochures. None of that.
No, there's none of that. There's none of that. There's none of that. And it's all work. And part of also working in construction, or whether it's building a pond or building a fence or digging a hole, all those things are done as a means of trial, as a way of also, you know the physical work is the same thing in our sense of training. If we look at it as labor, as chore, then it becomes a negative thing. But if you change that perception as training, which we emphasize to all our Hwarang Doers, this is what you guys do also, right, in the Western culture, right? You sit around all day, right, rotting your whole body, mind, and spirit, and then you go to get uh, pay all kinds of uh, uh, absorbent amounts of money for gym membership, which you expire, which you only use for about a month or two, and then you go an hour and go lift weights and ride a bike. If you look at in daily living an active life, and you look at as part as that is training, you can do all your activities in a way that will give you the physical benefits without the wasting the money in the gym. you know so it is in this kind of mentality, changing the perspective, and make your life a way of training, way of strengthening your body and your mind. And also, no matter, as he said, whatever task you do, that you do it the best you can. Whether it's cleaning a toilet to digging a hole, that you do it the uh, best way possible, and make it and that's an individual, right? If you're not a beautiful person, you can't make beautiful things. If you're not a person who's attentive to detail, then what you're going to produce are very dysfunctional products, unfunctioning waste. So those are the first lessons. And Cerny was able to endure, and he endured for 2 years. 2 years, day in, day out, as he said. I mean, that says a lot, and that's why he's still here today. After what, 25 years later, right?
Yes, sir. I started 27 years ago, but it was 25, my first trip out to LA meeting you 25 years ago.
Yeah. And when he first came out, I told him a comment, and he's not, I think he's a little, bashful, or kind of, don't know what to say. So he's not saying all these personal things. But, when he came out, I told him that that I'm his, what am I? I'm your grandfather, right? I told him I'm your grandfather because he's my student. So my student is David Kiek, and he's David Kiek's student. And so Taejoon is then his great grandfather. So when I told him I'm your grandfather, and I think this is a segue into your next step. And then when I first told him that, he didn't really take it well. He didn't seem like he took it well. He's a this was the college graduate, all-knowing, self-righteous, and he was also a vegan,
Not
right?
vegetarian, sir.
Okay, what's the difference? What, a vegetarian? I mean, and we could talk a little more about that too. But the whole thing, the reason why I approached those particular things and why I said those things to him is because of his sense of self-righteousness, sense of I know, I'm a college graduate. I know I'm very active. I'm very political. I've studied and the world, as he said, is disappointing, and there's a lot of bad things, and I'm going to make it right. I'm going to do that kind of thing, change the world for a better place. And so I wanted to, he had to have that sense of humility and be humble. So in the beginning, he wasn't, I don't think he liked it. And of course, I said it, and I told him that, knowing that it's going to trigger him that way. And then, and when he did, from my memory serves me correct, when he did come to me, I gave him hell. I gave him hell, mainly about calling him on his stuff, on self-righteousness, on the things he said he was going to do, on the things he promised, and he was unable to fulfill them, etc. And in challenging him in those things to be careful of what promises and what high hopes that he creates by saying these things, and whatever he says, he has to follow through by action and so forth. So, and then we stayed up long nights, talking and discussing, and one of the other things that he did not do, which he didn't drink, which is fine, but it was also the reason in which he didn't drink, and that was he saw all the college students and everyone messing around and doing stupid things. I went to USC, trust me, I know. Okay, and we talked about this in the last podcast. But that is a different way of approaching drinking, right? So the way we approach it and the way we do, because it's an opportunity to lower the inhibition, to loosen the tongue, and to speak frankly and honestly. And a lot of us who have strong ego, strong men, or have big fronts, we need that. All right. And so we would sit around and we would sip on some whiskey or something, and we talk, and we talk all night, and no crazy college stuff happened. So I wanted to share with him that there's a different way, and it's not about the drinking. It's not about the not eating meat. It's not about that particular external things that changes the person. It's the person. It's the person, and how the person is self-controlled, and how the person perceives the world, his sense of mentality, and his emotional state of being. He has to be in control of that, and the external things is really is regardless, is ineffectual. Okay, because the individual must be strong. So before he left, he came to me, right, and he said something to me.
Yes, sir. So I think it was, well, there's a couple little stories I think to go along with that, sir. The first time I visited LA, we spent some time there training, and then that was when I was digging the koi pond with Taejoon, and I think that first trip you used to said, okay, we'll see you next time, or see you later, or whatever. And then the following summer I came back out again, and we had more time during that trip. So we trained the
Okay,
whole
so
week.
if you spent, think about it, right? If somebody spends like 5 days a week or whatever, it is, came out for training and had to dig a koi pond, and then they leave and then they come back next year. See, you know, he's either really stupid or crazy, right? Who would do that? Who would do that? But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
So yeah, that second year we come back for the summer vacation, training. So we had more time, but I kind of remember clearly at the end of that trip, I was starting to express my intention, like, oh, I want to do Hwarang Do. Like, I want to be an instructor. Like right now I'm at the Madison, schools. I'm working here. I want to finish my undergraduate degree. And so the first time I was like, telling you I intend to do this. And I think at first I was like hoping for encouragement, like, okay, great, you can do it, something like that. But you gave me oh yeah, you want to do this? You sure you want to do this? I don't think you know what you're getting into, because this is not easy, and you better think twice before you really consider this. And you gave me all the I don't want to say not encouraging ways to pursue this, but the truthful and honest ways of, like, what I'm actually might be possibly getting myself into. And I think I really appreciated that, because my ego was hoping for the encouragement side of things, but of course, being naive and not knowing what's actually all entailed, it was great to hear some honesty about that. And then, again, that following year, I then graduated, then moved out there, and yeah, it was definitely a grind. And I think it was like after that first year is when you made the grandfather comment, when it was sometime during that. And I did not take it well, because I'm like, hey, I've been here for a year. I'm working hard. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm with Taejoon all the time, and we're doing this, we're doing that. And so, like, I didn't feel like I tried to take it in a bad way, but I'm sure I did. And it didn't feel good. But then throughout that whole second year of the apprentice time, we finished it with a great snowboarding trip. We went up to Big Bear to do snowboarding. And it was at the end of that, where I'd come to realize and appreciate all the care that you've given, all the care that Taejoon gave, and of course, all the care that Master Kiev gave to me throughout my time, prior in the college years. So that was the time I thanked you. I said, oh, I didn't understand it at the time, but thank you for saying that. That checked me, put me in my place. Absolutely. Master Kiek's my first teacher, always has been, always will be. And I'll always be grateful and respectful for that. And, it was a good humbling moment for me to recognize that. And I think that gets to the next thing that you told me, which was pretty impactful. You said, okay, thank you for acknowledging that. I'm glad you understand this important lesson. And now, as you go off to Minneapolis, don't listen to anybody. Don't listen to anybody. Whatever anybody says, don't listen. Just go and, be forthright and try your best. And I think that was a good lesson too, because as I was moving back to Minneapolis, it was like, I drove my car back, and it was like I got home and I had one of those moments where, like, wow, like, I'm not at headquarters anymore. I don't have a school that I'm working at anymore. And, like, literally there's nothing. There's no students here. This is my home where I grew up, like, neighborhood wise and territorial wise. But it's like I haven't been here in years, from college and from the time at headquarters. So it was like, wow, like, the pressure of being on your own and independent is completely different, even if you are doing, like, the brunt of the work at whatever school. So, I settled in for just a couple days just to rest and relax. And then, started approaching different facilities to try and set up a club, because without students and without any money, because I wasn't, I was just getting a minimal stipend there at the work at headquarters, just, for food and gas money, basically. And, it was start fresh. So driving around for clubs, like, I knew kind of the area where I wanted the school to end up at. And so I found a community center over there. And there's kind of a fun story with that. I asked them to show me the gym, show me all this stuff. And then, okay, I got the gym rental rate and it was like $50 an hour. And I'm like, oh, I can't do that right now. I don't have any students and don't have any money. So I said, do you have any other rooms? And they said, we have this place called the Hut, but I don't think you want that. And I'm like, the Hut, tell me about that. And so it's literally this back structure, basically a storage building for activity equipment, but it was big. So it had like about a 50 by 100-foot open area. And the place was used for dog training classes, storage, and it became the new Hwarang Do club here in Minnesota for starting out. Because it was a cheap rate. They gave me a good deal and I was able to get going. And then basically it took about a year, just over a year before I was able to afford, enough, had enough enrollment going for the program to open up a full-time academy. And that was 21 years ago now.
How long did that take from going to the Hut to opening an actual academy?
Yeah, it was just over a year, about a year and a half. And we started, during my time at headquarters, I self-taught, myself, basic website stuff. So I built a website back then when they were first getting going here, and got a few leads on that. And then we had actually good marketing presence, so I had good search results. Thanks to you, Ferny, back in the later time, we really developed a good presence with all that, and the program grew. I think the best thing for us, at that time we were about 50% adults, 50% kids. So we had a good adult program, and a lot of the adults that started at that time were pretty dedicated. They were really serious. So they started helping in classes. I had a really good instructor, Preston Packard, who came up at that time, and he was working construction jobs and other things, but then got really serious into Hwarang Do as well. So him and a couple other guys were there 5 days a week and training, teaching, helping, working. And I think the great success about our school was we're definitely like self-built. Like all the hard work for remodeling this facility, that was done all by the students. Myself and students were spent late nights remodeling, getting the place ready. All the different components, we would do a little fundraiser for it to get mirrors or to get mats or doing different things like that. And then like everybody was just built and jived around that culture of the Hwarang Do experience.
Yeah, I mean, you're describing certain components and whatever, but first of all, from your experience at headquarters, and the one of the also following up with that, the reasoning I said in the generationally why I'm your grandfather. It is always important, and this is so important to understand and teach, especially in the Western world. You have to know your teacher. You have to know who your teacher is, and you have to pay respect. You always have to. You have to know who your father is, who your grandfather. All those things are also why we, and you're talking about, people helping at the school and developing what you have in Minneapolis. You're talking about culture, but in essence, what is actually, as Taejoon like to say, is familyship. It's family. It's understanding of family, and so whether you know it or not, right? That is what you were taught from the very beginning when you came to headquarters. Is Taejoon took you as family. You work together, sleep together, eat together, right? Everything you do together, right? It's 24/7, 7 days a week, and everything, and that is what Hwarang Do is. So I would like to substitute that word of culture as the teaching of what is essential to develop strong relationships, which is the foundation of any society. And that starts with understanding family, how a family works, and what is the duty and responsibility of father, teacher, son, child, uh, who also soon will be father, teacher. And those lessons that you learn as a son from the father are vital in how you're going to grow up to be a good father. So that is Hwarang Do. That is also in the way we preserve our art, is through the teaching of family, duty, loyalty, honor, right? And that is essential. And the one reason I, getting into this here also is because you don't have experience in other martial arts or other groups or whatever, but for sure, I'm sure you can see. I mean, that is the real distinction, right? In how what Hwarang Do is in relation to other martial art, and that Hwarang Do then becomes the martial art becomes a means, right, of cultivating strong familial ties based around the idea uh, of the quintessential bonding agent of any group or family, loyalty, and hence the legacy of loyalty. And I like for you to elaborate on that a little bit too. But he's uh, you know Dylan, his master Cerny, he's been like my son. I took him to Korea. Our family, we got him introduced. I was sitting with him when he first met his wife, and I was the active parent in introducing uh, the two. What do you call that? Uh, uh, you know, Potential marriage, like arranged marriage. I went, spent all the time in Korea. So he is like a son to me. He's a little bit older, but still he's everything that in the 25 years it's been like a son in every way.
Yeah, for
Really,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure, sir. Like it's, we've had a very, very tight relationship for a long time, sir. And especially helping me grow up and learn and experience life and for all kinds of different ways.
yeah. He was very, very, very innocent, very pure. You know, uh, so I corrupted him. I made him worldly. I showed him the world.
Yeah. So, yeah, I definitely got to see the world and all sides of it. But that's, I'll be forever grateful for all that.
Yeah.
Forever
That's
grateful.
called. That's in another word. That's called maturity.
Yes, sir.
I think for one of the things that stuck out for me as you were talking about how you went from a club to an academy, and then how everybody contributed, that like basically the school was built by the students essentially, and you did fundraisers, everyone chipped in when money was needed, it was raised, it wasn't borrowed, it wasn't like most businesses, they start in debt, they get a business loan to get started, they get loans to do renovations or to add something to school, or to like, instead of doing that, any of that, it was all like from within. It was the family that was the real, that brought the value to the school and made it possible. And so for me, it like, what is the value of a business or an entity? It's the bonds. It's, it's present a little bit in the business world where they view employees like assets, when you buy a business, but that doesn't really capture what you had. Like, you had everybody helping in and chipping in the small or big way. And I don't think what you created would have been possible without that, no matter how many other resources you had.
Well, that's the failing of the world we live in today. Okay, because companies and corporations used to be like family, right? And company loyalty and the employee loyalty was strong. And when you work for a company, they kept you for life. And the one of the reasons why Japan got ahead uh, after World War II was because of that idea. And each company, they're what Suzuki, Yamaha, all this, they're all uh, they're individual family names, but they changed that. They changed that and became modern. And now, like all the other world, it's not about that loyalty and all it's all gone. And also, that's not just in the business sector, but that one of the big problems of the world we have today is the breakdown of family, and then that is the beginning and the cause of breakdown of society, and that's what we're seeing right now. And that is one of the reasons why it's so important that as Hwarang Do instructors, Hwarang Do teachers, we understand this and that we are able to teach it and preserve these ideas. It's very important.
Is there, I think, like going along with that, one of the things, for me growing up as an instructor, then running a business, and then, doing this for decades and getting more involved in the martial art community and other things too. I think that unique experience that I had from the beginning, in that we're trying to obviously continue here, really does distinguish Hwarang Do from all the other systems. Like, again, when I started, this was before internet age, and there's nothing, we see movies and you just have mythical esoteric expectations, and then UFC comes out, and then there's now a battleground to test style versus style, and we go through that phase of the martial art history here. But then as you look around the world today, you clearly see there's the sport karate, there's the BJJ and jiu-jitsu world that's taking off as a sport and doing its thing. You have some traditional things like a Shaolin experience, and then MMA. And so it's, everything's divided on this sport culture or straight up fighting type culture, or what we're doing is, which is more of the traditional experience of martial art, that I think a lot of us, when we think of martial arts, is what we're dreaming of and hoping of. And we're still continuing that here in this, comprehensive curriculum that we have. But it is the sense of family, sense of loyalty, sense of values in pursuit of what we're trying to do, versus this martial art, technical, component aspect.
Well, what happens is that it's the teacher-student, father-son relationship has to be maintained in a family. Okay, so when you have martial art that's based on sport or competition, then the teacher and the student, now they're fighting or they're sparring, they're grappling or whatever together, so they become now athletes, and one is competitive with the other. So now you lose the teacher-student, or more importantly, the father-son relationship. Okay, so this is America, right? When I first came to America, if I find out, first of all, because my name is Lee, first thing they ask me is I'm related to Bruce Lee. That's the first thing. And the second thing, they find out that my father is the founder of a martial art. And then what do they ask? What do they ask? If you and your father got in a fight, who would win? Right? That is the most ridiculous question to a Korean or to an Asian, especially a Korean who's founded in the modern world in the in the modern world based on Confucianism. We don't think ever that's not even a thought that even comes to our mind, right? That you would compete with your father. So um, so this is why it's so important, and that's why that we don't. Uh, uh, that's why the sport component, MMA, sport aspect of martial arts, martial sports, can't maintain the relationships we have, because athletes now, competitors, you lose that. You lose. When the student is able to beat up the father, beat up the teacher, then that's it. Where's then they're buddies, right? That doesn't happen in Hwarang Do. But in Hwarang Do, it's not just about the fighting. It doesn't matter about beating the person up, or you can win them in a match, right? We base it on the ideas of their character and their leadership quality. Are they a good human being? Are they a person that deserves respect, not because they're able to win a fight? What kind of person are they? And that is a more higher path to pursue. So it's completely different. It's not. You can't even compare. Can't compare. So I've suggested many times that martial art need to be categorized differently, right? It's martial sport, and there's martial art. The whole martial way. It has to be distinguished completely, because we're not a martial sport. We're not sport.
Yeah, for sure, sir. I think a lot of the confusion that other people have too is they're focused on the sport or the technique or what works on the street and all that kind of stuff. It's just purely a martial focus, and they're not seeing the other side. But also relating to what you're talking about with the sense of family and other stuff, like Hwarang Do has this generational approach, and the idea of legacy, I think, is an important thing that's unique for Hwarang Do compared to, again, other people. Like other people, like, oh, I'm going to be champion of the world, or win whatever prize thing, or get whatever belt. And for us, and again, I've experienced that from my apprentice time at headquarters throughout. It's like, we want to care for the people with us, but also think about the legacy of time and history, and where are we going to stand 2,000 years from now, as well as 2,000 years in the past, and how do we develop this continuum of a legacy.
So now explain, give us a little of what you're doing now, what your school is like now. You have some, I know you have some youth programs and so forth. So explain to us about that, and why you remained this long, and what your hopes and plans for the future.
Sure, sir. So since opening up the school,
It's not because anything that I don't know, but I'm doing this for the listeners, right?
Yeah. So for our school, we've been here for a number of decades, and about, was it 2010, we went through a major expansion. So we added a whole section of the building, and then a few years ago we added a whole nother section of the building. So we have close to about 10,000 square feet here in our facility. And
so you went from a hut, a storage facility outside in some back of some building that was used for a doghouse, to now a over 10,000 square foot facility that you own.
Correct, sir. Yeah. So we expanded multiple times, and then I was able to work up a deal to purchase the building in 2015, and then again 2018 or 2019. We expanded again because one of the big things that I really cared about was helping children, because again, as I grew up, not seeing lots of different positive avenues for people to pursue. If we can help the youth learn the skills of confidence, strength, integrity, character, and all the life lessons that Hwa Rang Do teaches, wherever they go in life, they're going to be successful and have a positive life. So I kind of made that as my personal mission as a teacher, was really focusing on the youth program side of that. And one of the things, along with running classes, that I wanted to do was to create more time for the children to be immersed in the program. So we created an after school program, so kids could come right after their educational school and be here from 2 or 3 o'clock all the way to 6 o'clock. Some people are here 5 days a week in that program, and other people doing 2 or 3, 4 days options, but they get to train every day, and we get to do activities, life lessons, team building, and other projects, along with having good quality free time and play for the kids too. But it's just, they're immersed in this program right away, from elementary school. We also run full week-long summer camps from 9 in the morning to 5 o'clock summer camps. We do 6 week-long sessions every year. So those are a great experience for the kids. They get to do a workshop style martial art training. So like 1 week is our sparring camp. 1 week will be a grappling camp. 1 week, like a Ninja Warrior week, where we're doing parkour and gymnastics and tricks and things like that. And then we have other themed activities to go along with it, so they can learn a lot. Also, our school is located right by a beautiful kind of creek area, so we go down there and do archery with the kids, and you just get to do a lot of time with that. And that's kind of how we like to start the kids, and they're doing all this after school program or our regular classes. But we also have a very large TGT program, which for our martial art, TGT is the Tukgong team, or our special forces leadership team for the kids. And adults are in the program too. But for the kids, they get to learn how to help in classes, learn how to buddy with new people, learn how to lead warm-ups, and then learn how to lead small groups. And so it's a way for us to give them apprenticeship time through the martial art journey of leadership, even at a young age. And so we have kids that have gone through our program. Like even right now, I have one of my guys is started in the kindergarten level with us, went into all our programs, did our after school, got into our leadership program, and now he's a full-time staff member. And so we try and bridge this experiential gap that people need to go through, from training and focusing just about themselves, then experiencing leadership and caring about other things. Then we have like a junior intern program where they start cleaning and doing other activities and buddying. And then we have a paid staff level position that we give to kids like when they're in high school and 15 years old. And so that they can find, some entrepreneurial and economic benefits from pursuing Hwa Rang Do. And then ideally, we're going to set them up into clubs and other positions in the future as they grow in their skills and capacity.
Well, that's a long way from having a class and having a bunch of dogs waiting for their turn in the hut. So,
yeah, we have a couple people left from the hut days, and it's great to have them, but it's also great to see what's happened here at our school. A lot's grown. Dealing with all the COVID stuff was obviously tough because our industry was hit the hardest by the restrictions and mandates, unfortunately.
But especially also in your area.
Yes, sir. Yeah, Minneapolis has kind of been the epicenter for a lot of things these days, unfortunately. Yeah. And we're trying our best to stand strong, but it's also time to think about bridging out towards other areas to keep things going. So yeah, like one of my long-term plans that I thought was more long-term, but because of COVID and all the other stuff has kind of pushed me to go through, is I want to create a training center sanctuary up in the northern areas of Minnesota. There's tons of beautiful lakes and natural areas. And I think the lessons of the ancient Hwa Rang Do practitioners, resonate with the times to me. They would be up in the mountains and the temples and all these beautiful landscape areas, seeking truth and training. And they dedicated themselves in that. And the natural world has a lot of lessons that, modern society has forgotten about. And the corruption of society and the topsy-turvy times are readily apparent for all to see. And getting back to traditional values, as Grandmaster Lee was talking about, but also getting back to nature and finding a harmonious way to live, a self-sustainable way to live, self-reliant way to live are very important lessons. So right now I am seeking to try to find a property up north that will work for our needs, and try to work out the financial transactions here between the existing building I have here in Minneapolis, and try and use that as a sale into the other thing. And we'll keep the school going down here in Minneapolis for sure. And just try to find a way to bridge the two areas, and create another sanctuary for Hwarang Do practitioners.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good.
Yeah,
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I'm so glad to hear, like, despite everything that's happened, because I know it's been really tough in Minneapolis and most of the urban cities for any business, much less a business where people do have to congregate and be together. That you're gonna continue that presence, because I think it's gonna be an oasis in the desert. Very much. It's needed. It's we're not an entity that cuts and runs when things that get difficult. We're there to be an oasis for people that are still looking for everything we offer.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think the mandates and all the whatever, all the things that are going on has been a good test, for me to practice what I preach. All the lessons that I learned as a Hwarang Do practitioner growing up, it's like, okay, how do I apply those lessons as a leader here, as a business owner, as a member of the community, and how do we still shine some light in this world, and try
well, that goes for everybody. I mean, that's all our Hwarang Do instructors and students are going through that. Italy also. Italy's still doing mandates, and they're not letting up. And so, but it is surely our Hwarang Do way of thinking, way of our philosophy that sustained us, and also the foundational Hwarang Do, in which that we have the strength of human beings is our adaptability, and to not to fixate on one thing, but to have a solid foundation, but to be flexible and to adapt to changing times. So as I've always said, Hwarang Do is not a style or a methodology, but it is a way of living in order to constantly improve, cultivate, and strengthen the attributes of what is to be human. And that requires us to be aware and to reflect and know what exactly is essential and is the value. What are the valuable components of being human, and then start from there. So for me, I mean, I'm very proud of you, of what you've done so far, and I look forward, to your continued efforts. You're still young, okay?
Yes, sir.
So you got lots ahead of you, and we have. Thank goodness, though, we do have a lot of things that we need to do.
Of course, sir.
So we are constantly busy. So that's that's a good thing. So
Yeah.
I don't want to take over your job here, Ferny, but so I guess
I'm just a producer here, sir. That's it.
So we move to some closing remarks. If you'd like to say things to our listeners, to anybody. I mean, there are students, there are a lot of public people, there are other martial artists. If any, what last thing would you like to leave in their minds?
Is that for me or for Master Cerny, sir?
Master Cerny.
Okay,
you're the moderator here.
Oh, well, he stayed silent. So I don't.
Yeah, I wasn't sure there. No, sir. I think with all the challenging times and all of the difficulties, everybody's in a a state of a quandary and figuring out their place. And just like I've tried to figure that out in the past, I'm still doing that today. Like, what's the best route to go? What's the best thing to do? I think it's good for everybody to know that there are lots of options to explore. And if you're looking for unique things, like, again, like I spend a lot of time working with youth and, high school kids and people that are going to college. And it's like, are these traditional routes of going to college, getting in debt, trying to find some corporate job, and everybody realizes now, like, that's not, a meaningful life for a lot of people. Like, you're seeking more, you're seeking different paths. I'd encourage those people that are looking for alternatives to find the alternatives, whether it's a thing like pursuing Hwa Rang Do as, not just a martial art practice, but as a business. This is an important thing and a great opportunity for a lot of people. But there's also ways that you can enhance your own skills and seeking apprenticeship styles of learning and vocational styles of learning versus, again, just the university liberal arts degree, which, again, there's so many people going down that track and then are working at Target and Walmart and other things and happy to get a manager job, yet they're still $250,000 in debt. We have to look at, what are self-sustainable, self-reliant ways of pursuing a livelihood and finding a craftsmanship, finding a vocation to pursue versus just careers and jobs that are empty and, just pay the bills. That's not good for anybody. So,
I mean, I, of course, I agree with you in that, but I would just like to add, and I think looking at you from the outside perspective, seeing you, I mean, you're a perfect example in my mind of somebody living their life, pursuing meaning rather than money. As Taejoon, our founder, has said countless times, that man should not follow money. Money should follow man. Meaning, too many of us, we do the work to make money so we can go on vacation, or so we can, buy some material things, or enjoy our weekends, and etc. And this is, I go back to beginning what I said, and that's the problem. We have to love our work, and the way that you make money follow you is that you live out your passion, you live out your love. And so, along with what you just said, and I mean, you're a perfect example of somebody seeking, what they love. And a lot of times, when we do the things that we love, we hate. We often will hate it because it's not easy, right? But if we're able to endure, and we're able to study, always constantly learning and growing and gain knowledge, then uh, and we can outgrow that phase, then to me that becomes a true, um, true joy comes in those later years. I mean, for me, and I'm sure you too. I mean, just hearing your story, in your child program and growing up, and doing your intern and etc. And he's now your staff in what, 10, 20, 15 years. I mean, that's incredible, and that's also, what I see with you, right, in the last 25 years and watching you grow. And I've seen so many people in that way through Hwarang Do, that and so, um, I think, to just to give overall moral or theme to your journey, Master Cerny, is that, is to follow your passion. But it's important, right, that we choose properly, right, too many of us jump into things too quickly, and when we do, then we leave quickly. So you were very careful. I know you checked a lot of things out, but once you did, I mean, now just out of why I say just out of college, because you don't know the real world, right? And fortunately, if you meet the right people in your lives, they will guide you and mentor you and help you to grow and experience the world and mature, but still be protected and from any serious harm, because the world. Is that
Sorry.
a cat? Oh, you got a cat problem? I have a dog problem. So, uh, so that what is essential? Two things. Once again, being reflective, knowing about yourself, and what you're passionate about, what you really pursue, the idea of meaning. And secondly, it's about relationship, to cultivate strong relationships, to find the proper mentor, to find the proper teacher. And with those things, then then things will come. And it's important also to not to love so much of the things of the world, not to be so materialistic, and not to fall into this trap of living life in excess, and with greed, because greed is uncontrollable. It's untamable once you get, it's an addiction. So if you remain humble and pursue meaning rather than money, do what you love, then you go a long way, like Master Cerny.
Well, thank you very much, sir.
Awesome, sir. Well, Cerny, thank you for being here with us. I think this was, just a really fun discussion. I learned things about your your background, your story that I didn't know before, and I've known you for many years, and so I appreciate it personally. But I'm sure everybody just got a unique perspective on what it means to be a Hwarang and a warrior in modern society, and what that looks like. And you were just a beautiful example of what that is. So thank you, sir, for being here.
Well, thank you, Ferny. Appreciate it.
Very good.
Thank you, Grandmaster, for being an incredible moderator, and I hope you guys like my
Thank
production.
you, Ferny. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
So,
Hold on.
But
see you the next time.
Okay.